a 2015 graduate of Kwara State Polytechnic, Ekwere Imo, and his female friend were shot by a member of SARS, Oyo State Police Command. There were no concrete reason for shooting the duo, as they were neither criminals nor under arrest. In the same month, a lady, Kachi Anife Lazion, accused officers of SARS in Ilorin of sexual molestation. She said a male SARS official, under the pretense of searching her, dipped his hand in her underwear. A video also emerged online in November, where a gun-wielding SARS operative threatened to shoot 2 people at Akute Ore of Ogun State. Most of the tweets with the hashtag #EndSARS reported several cases of harassment and arbitrary arrest of Nigerian youths by labeling them Yahoo boys. Mr. President, the complaints have ranged from how officers were led citizens at ATM points to how they often threaten to kill and vowing they will get away with it. There are specific claims of how SARS officers allegedly murdered citizens for declining to pay bribes or tortured citizens. Mr. President, we are a civilized society. The majority of Nigerian police is manned by men and women of great integrity, discipline, and commitment. However, this unit is not one of them. It is dangerous for us to have a unit of the police force act as if it is above the law and empower light unit built around the rule of law and human rights observance is created by the police. I am aware that in 2015, the then Inspector General of Police, IG Solomon Arase, had due to incessant reports of abuses by the court, split SARS into 2 units with a view to check its human rights abuses. This it did by ensuring that officers cannot make arrests and investigate the same case. However, the abuses have continued irrespective of the competition. The police high command had earlier stated that it has no intention to scrap the squad, and contrary to claims of wrongdoing against the SARS by those it referred to as criminals, the anti-robbery unit that has done a lot sanitizing the country, rather than to take note of complaints by general public and proceed to investigate and take action against these human rights abuses. They only made matters worse by calling the campaigners criminals. Mr. President, the Nigerian Police Force has a major obligation to ensure protection of human rights in all the states of the Federation, and therefore ought to prevent, detect, and investigate corruption and misconduct by law enforcement officers and provide accountability for the exercise of their powers. Mr. President, this Senate takes serious stand on the issue of security in the country and has taken active steps to ensure safety of our people by inaugurating the Senate Special Ad Hoc Committee on Security. This amounts to setback to our progress, and therefore I want to call on this chamber to mandate the Committee on Security to investigate this issue of human rights abuses by SARS and make relevant recommendations. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, this Special Anti-Robbery Squad, by its creation, is supposed to be under, if it is operating at the federal level, is supposed to be under a DIG, under Force CID. And if it is operating in the state level, it's supposed to be manned by ACCID, and it's supposed to be under the control of the Commissioner of Police. But today, SARS, what we are witnessing in SARS, they are being controlled in the operations. They are, the control is from the force headquarters, which is not supposed to be. It's supposed to be headed by a Commissioner of Police under the Force CID. By the present structure, where it is controlled by the operation, the SARS is used to intimidate opponents, sometimes even politicians. Sometimes you find that the federal SARS will go to states and arrest people without making reference to the Commissioner of Police. They will bring them to Abuja and detain them. Mr. President, if we don't put the SARS where it belongs, that is under the Force CID, under the control of the order. Mr. President, we have to look at this issue of SARS is not supposed to be under Operation Department of the Police. It's supposed to be under investigation and intelligence directly under a DIG, and it's supposed to be under direct supervision of a commissioner of police. And if it is in the state, it's supposed to be under direct control of the commissioner of police and headed by a maybe AC CID. But in a situation whereby force under the force headquarters, they will continue to move around the country, whereby even the CP, they will be operating in a state, and even the CP has no control over the junior officers operating in the state. I think, Mr. President, we are not doing good for the citizens of this country. We must make our own stand so that we end this impunity. There are so many occasions you see the SARS people are used to intimidate political opponents, to even issue of, we have seen it, especially in Rivers and other Lagos and other states. Well, Mr. President, it is a great privilege for us now to make a stand on this, because a lot of people are talking about it on papers, on online media, and we must align ourselves with the public. Thank you very much.
What's the prayer? You bring the prayer, okay. Yeah, and yeah, anybody seconding the motion, then we can just move straight to. Yes, and to Dinumilai.
Mr. President, my respected colleagues, Dinumilai, I stand to Kogi West, I stand to support this very patriotic motion by Senator Isam and Misa.
Distinguished colleagues, we'll go to the prayer. Okay, the same question is actually just one prayer. The prayer says that to mandate the committee on the ad hoc committee on security, which we set up to investigate the issue of human rights abuse by SARS and make relevant recommendation. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. I think thank you, Senator Isam. I think this matter, two things just for information, is the fact that, as we all know, we have set up this high-powered committee to look at all the security infrastructure in the country. And I think it's appropriate that we send it to them for them to consider it. And I think I also heard that the IG himself too is reviewing the structure. I think it's clear that something wrong is going on and it needs urgent attention. So I thank Senator Isam for bringing it to our attention, and I hope the Committee on Security will take action to quickly find a solution to this problem, because it is happening in all our constituents and we must be seen to be responsive to some of these needs. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Yahaya Abdullahi on the National Biosafety Management Agency Act 2015, Amendment Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
The clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Biosafety Management Agency Act 2015, Amendment Bill 2017, SB 577, first reading.
National Biosafety Management Agency Act 2015, Amendment Bill 2017, SB 577, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Nelson Effiong on the Medical and Dental Practitioners Act No. 23, 1988, Amendment Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the first title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Medical and Dental Practitioners Act No. 23, 1998, Amendment Bill 2017, SB 584, first reading.
Medical and Dental Practitioner Act number 23, 1988, Amendment Bill 2017, SB 584, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Robert A. Boroface on the Chemical Weapon Prohibition Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Chemical Weapon Prohibition Bill 2017, SB 585, first reading.
Chemical Weapon Prohibition Bill 2017, SB 585, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petition in respect of A petition from Corporal Ogunbiyide Adewale against the Nigerian Army for wrongful dismissal from Army. B, a petition from Lieutenant Solomon Damina and 12 others against the Nigerian Army for alleged unjust retirement from the Army. C, a petition from Major Kenneth David Choma Obiamaso against the Nigerian Army for his wrongful retirement from the Army as on medical grounds. And D, petition from Okoro Felicia against the Federal Road Safety Corps for alleged wrongful dismissal from the Corps. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Samuel Anyanwu, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Samuel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. Sam Anyanwu, Kumo East. In view of Mr. President and the Senate, I move that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions in respect of A petition from Corporal Ogunbiyide Adewale against the Nigerian Army for wrongful dismissal from the Army. B, a petition from Lieutenant Solomon Damina and 12 others against the Nigerian Army for alleged unjust retirement from the Army. C, a petition from Major Kenneth David Choma Obiamaso, retired, against the Nigerian Army for his wrongful retirement from the Army on medical grounds. And D, petition from Okoro Felicia against the Federal Road Safety Corps for alleged wrongful dismissal from the Corps. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Shehu Sani.
I stand as Comrade Senator Shehu Sani to move the report of the Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges and Petitions as moved by distinguished Senator Samuel Anyanwu be so approved. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions in respect of the reports as presented by Senator Samuel say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Samuel, present lead the report. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the first order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Solomon Adiola and 18 others on the legislative investigation of local content element and cost variation relating to engine oil field, Aegina oil field, and other related projects. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Solomon Adiola Yayi to move the motion.
Senator Solomon Adiola.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleague. I'm here to move a motion on the legislative investigation of local content element and cost variation relating to Aegina oil field and other related projects. Motion sponsored by my humble self and 18 distinguished senators of the Federal Republic. The Senate notes that engineering study for Aegina oil field project began in 2008 with an approval of the National Petroleum Investment Management Service, NAPIS, and the Department of Petroleum Resources, DPR, in 2008 and 2009 respectively. The Aegina project was conceived as a deep offshore field comprising of a floating production storage and offloading vessels, FPSO, and oil offloading terminals and subsea production systems such as riser, 52 kilometers of oil and water injection flow liners, 12 flexible jumpers, 20 kilometers of gas export pipeline, and 80 kilometers of umbilical and subsea manifold. Note further that Aegina project located within the oil mining lease block OML 130 and covers an area of about 500 square miles is developed by Total Exploration and Production Nigeria Limited, 24% in partnership with CNOOC Energy Nigeria Limited, 45%, Petrobras 16%, and Septro 15%, to contribute an estimated 200,000 barrels of oil per day to the Nigerian daily oil production from the planned 2018 commencement date. The oil field is situated at a water depth of up to 1,750 kilometers. Aware that the total awarded various contract for the different components of the Aegina project to 1. Glovers Engineering, Abbott Race Consulting, ARC, Sapien, FMC Technology, Volrex and Samsung Heavy Industry SHI. For feed contract, Safety Engineering Design Studies, Engineering Procurement Fabrication and Installation, EPCAI, and the pre-commissioning contract, Engineering Procurement Construction and Commissioning, EPCC contract for subsea production system, steel tube umbilical of production, water injection and subsea isolation valve, SSIV types, trunky contract for the design, procurement, construction, delivery and trial operation of the Aegina FSPO respectively. Aware that several of these contractors have also engaged subcontractors to provide various aspects of these project components. Understand that the Aegina project was expected to comply with the provision of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Development Act of 2010 by award to the Nigerian workforce, as well as ensuring needed technology and knowledge transfer proportionately to the overall project value and scope. Observe that at inception, the project was estimated to cost $6 billion, was undergo several cost valuation variations, and currently puts the cost at over 16.352 billion today. Aware that the key component of the Aegina project, the floating production, the storage and offloading FSPO vessels, has been completed and is currently on the sea to Nigeria. The FSPO contracted to the Korean-based Samsung Heavy Industries with Lador Integrated Logistic Enterprise as the local content partner. Is expected to arrive Nigeria from Korea before the end of 2017 or early January 2018. Aware that several fabrication and integration works have also been completed by Sapien, Nest Oil, Nigedoc, Dermalong, and Avion, who are contractors or subcontractors for different aspects of the project. Observe that all is set for the integration of the 6 locally fabricated topside modules to be integrated on the FSPO at Samsung MCI yard before the sale to the OML 13 location and site of the Aegina oil field. In essence, all appears to be set for the project to go alive. First oil date planned for fourth quarter of 2018. Note that at inception, the project cost boosted of 24 million man-hour of work done in the country, representing 77% of the workload for the project, an equivalent of a workforce of 3,000 persons, and average over a period of 5 years. There was a planned fabrication of approximately 60,000 tons of equipment in various yards in the country, including specialized equipment like pressure vessels, flare towers, early deck, leading quarters structures, large FSPO structures, and complex subsea structures. Further note that another 297,000 man-hour of work on the basic engineering for the Aegina project was stipulated to be performed in the country to represent 94% of the total man-hour spent. Thousands of hours in the in-country and foreign training programs were planned for the project workforce as part of the required technology transfer. Concerned that over the life of the project, the cost component has been reviewed twice, from the initial $6 billion approximately budget ends to about $13 billion, and most recently to $16.352 billion approximately. Disturbed that the local content element as well as the cost variation of the project has been subject of several petitions and queries over the years. Petitions have been submitted to effect the Monumental Fraud Act of Disregard for the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industrial Content Development Act of 2010 abound on the procurement and the contractual arrangement of the FSPO element of the procurement. Understand that the assertion abound in the oil and gas industry to the effect that the several of the planned in-country engineering activities relating to the FSPO as well as other elements of the project were not executed in Nigeria, but were rather executed in Korea and other related countries, and only imported into Nigeria. This is contrary to the project work plan and again the spirit of the provision of protection of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industrial Content Development Act of 2010. Disturbed that the role and commitment of Lador as a local content partner to Samsung Heavy Industry on the FSPO element of the project has also been alleged to have been connived with Samsung to take away jobs from Nigeria and revenue from the federal government. Lador, like other subcontractors on the Aegina project, from Duco Limited, FMC Technologies, Non-Oil and Gas, Bell Oil and Gas, and Honeywell, is speculated to have allowed the exploitation of some of the work that ought to have been executed in country, and also participated in the cost variation in a bid to earn more than commission from the increased project cost. In a commission-based contract, several other indigenous companies as bidded to participate in the FSPO project were believed to have been engaged out of favor to favor the Samsung Lador deal. Observe that the Samsung, like other contractors on the project, began making variation during the life of the project without proportionate increase in the local content element of the project. Concerned that already two similar deep offshore field projects like the Aegina, namely the Bonga Southwest and the Zaba Zaba, with serious local content implication, are about to commence by the IOC and Nigerian government, with sharp different costs and variation from each other. Further note that in view of the huge variation in the cost of Aegina and possible non-adherence to the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industrial Content Act of 2010, as well as discrepancies in the cost of Aegina and two similar projects of the Bonga Southwest and Zaba Zaba, Nigeria may be perpetually indebted to the end of about 45 years, not 25, lifespan of these projects without any benefit thereon. Further concerned that local content element of the Aegina were planned to reflect the overall project cost and scope at inception, as required by the provision of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industrial Content Development Act of 2010. However, the annual variation of the project cost from approximately $6 billion to $16.352 billion over the years, it has also become necessary to understand: 1, the basis of the two or more variations; 2, the general compliance of the individual aspect of the Aegina project to the provision of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industrial Content Act 2010; 3. The aspect and component of the Aegina project that have had variation since the project commencement. 4. The impact of such cost variation on the initial local content element of the project. 5. If the local content element have been adequately adjusted with variation. And 6. The impact of the 167% variation in the initial project capital expenditure (CAPEX) on the overall project viability to the Nigerian content, as the variation is expected to drastically change the project payback period. Accordingly resolved, direct the Committee on Local Content to investigate the local content element and the cost variation related to Aegina oil fee and the 2 related Bonga Southwest and Zaba Zaba project, with the mandate to 1. Carry out public hearing on this widely celebrated project. 2. Ensure that there are no future changes necessitated further variation of the cost project. 3. Ascertain whether the cost project has direct impact on the project scope and objective. 6. 4. Ensure that the cost variation have the required resultant effect on the local content element of the project. And 5. Stop further action on the Bonga Southwest and Zaba Zaba oil field pending the outcome on investigation on the engineer and the variation in cost between these 3 similar projects. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I want to specially thank Mr. President and my distinguished colleague for the opportunity given to move this all-important motion. Mr. President, long before now, in the past, I want to say that this is the first project where we have a full-fledged local content and the implementation of the NOGIT Act to have happened. Mr. President, the first one that was done was before the NOGIT Act, which is the main Bonga. But since the passage of the NOGIT Act by this National Assembly, the first one to be done is the Aegina project, which is in conjunction with Total. The 2 other that is expected to be done is the Bonga Southwest and the Zaba Zaba. But Mr. President, my fear about these 3 projects is that the nature of the project and the way the project is being structured is not in the overall interest of Nigeria. While the first project is to cover a lifespan of 25 years, the 2 other projects is to cover a lifespan of 20 years respectively. But Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I want to just mention this to my colleague, that while the first project is to cost $16.5 billion, the next project of 150,000 barrels is to cost Nigeria $10 billion, while the third project of the same capacity of 150,000 barrels is to cost Nigeria $6.5 billion. I want to yield the floor for my colleague also to make that contribution. If any other time I come back to give more other information. Thank you, Mr. President. I so move.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, Niger North. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I want to second this very well presented motion by my colleague, Senator Solomon Adiola. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this is a very serious matter. And it is important that we get to the root of the issue being presented here. Because we all know the issue of offshore production is definitely a game changer for the Nigerian oil and gas industry. But I want to believe also that in doing so, let it be a game changer for the life of our citizens. And so the concern here is we are seeing a very wide variation that is disturbing, as the mover of the motion has presented. And in the course of this, our interaction with the various players, the experience we are seeing from the very first, such project which was executed before the Nordic Act, it is very clear that there are hidden costs. And definitely, these hidden costs are tied to the idea of what some people will say is local content, but when you look deep, you will come to realize that it is not really local content. And I think since we now have a Local Content Act, it is very important that we ensure compliance, because the objective is actually to help domesticate the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. And so whatever is going to happen, we must ensure that Nigerians also have a good deal. And I think this very elaborately presented motion is set to do just that. I want to urge my colleagues to support this motion and the various prayers in it, so that we can get to the root of it and to give Nigerians a better deal going further. I so second, Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity.
Senator Buhari.
Mr. President, distinguished colleague, in supporting this motion, yesterday, Mr. President, when we were having interaction with the various organizations concerned, we came across three important issues that need to be discussed here. One, the contract was signed for 20 years. They have already spent 12 years. And the question was asked, have you recouped back your initial capital? They agreed that they have recouped back their initial capital. So, between the first 8 years, you have recouped back your capital. And what is it that you are now giving the federal government from the money, excess money you are now having? They said they are investing some certain money again. Where is the document of the money you are investing? Nothing to show the committee. Mr. President, yesterday again, one of the agents was showing us a film. After the third step, it now shows where they were pumping gas into LLG. And the question was asked, what is the quantity of the gas you are pumping? And how much value is the amount you are being given? And whom are they giving the money to? He could not answer that question too. They now said, look, we are giving the money, and it's a sharing formula between the committee. And how much are you giving the federal government from the money you are getting? They could not say. Mr. President, this motion is coming at the right time. I think we need to go into the nitty-gritty and find out what is happening in order to save this country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, for giving me the opportunity to lend my voice to this all-important motion. First, let me congratulate the chairman of the Local Content, my dear brother, Senator Solomon Yayi, for bringing this motion. Mr. President, the oil industry is very sleepy. The more you look, the less you see. As a matter of fact, when I had the privilege of sitting with them to have a discussion with the first major investment in the offshore industry. I talk about the Bonga Men, which was done by Shell. It was predicated on 25 years. And we were shocked that they had realized their investment within the first 7 years. And still, they were still taking the money and operating the contract as if it was fresh. So Nigeria was not getting anything out of it. And we asked why. They said because it is continuous, that there are still things to be done. And so almost every year, they will get permission from the oil industry players to add one new investment or the other. That the field must continue to develop. You must continue to oil it. You must continue to. So I said, if you have recovered the initial cost of this contract, how then is the federal government not making money? They now said no, that they are reviewing, and that right now the federal government is making almost 65%. Yeah, 55. He said about 55 to 65% from the initial 15% that we were supposed to be making. That now, because they have recovered their money and the contract subsists up to 2025. That 2000. Yes, they recovered their money 8 years ago, but they still have to keep the thing till 2025, till 25 years. And so what they've done is that they've reviewed graciously and given the federal government 65% because of this recession. So if we are out of recession, they reduce the federal government from 65% again to 15%. And we were shocked. We said, so what then justifies your continuous operation of this contract in this manner? They said because they are continuously making, there's no investment they make that they will not get permission from either NNPC or from NAPIM. And sometimes they make $2 billion investment and all that. I said, so you get 35% continuously for something you have recovered your money a long time ago. Mr. President, you need to know that from the outset, this contract that we are talking about was supposed to be a build, operate, and transfer. So, in other words, they had finished the building, they had operated it and recovered their cost, and that whether the time had come or not, they ought to transfer the facility, the asset, to the federal government. And then, so Nigerians continue to talk about heavy production of oil without a concomitant improvement in the monthly revenue of the country. And sometimes we talk about zero production in oil, zero returns from NNPC because of the nature of the contract that we have come to see. That is why the Aegina project is something we must arrest on time. From the initial cost of $6 billion, so today they have done variation upon variation upon variation. They've added about 10-point-something billion. I was the governor, you were a governor, you know very well that if the initial contract cost was $3 billion, variation should not be twice the initial contract cost.
Let me even help you. Most of your contracts are in Naira. I can understand variation in Naira. How do you have variation in dollars of over 10? I'm sure you never give dollar contracts, so I'm just to help you on common leader. So even you could not do this kind of variation. These are not common variation.
Okay, Mr. President, whilst I agreeing with you, the problem is that we are measuring dollars. And then when we mention dollars, we say billion dollars. This is a period that we need to get out of recession. Nigeria needs this money. The citizens need this money. There's so much hunger. Look at our citizens that are being killed in Libya and turned into slavery. I'm wearing this black in order to mourn those children. I'm wearing this black to mourn those children. And I'm mourning the death of so many children. Because we need to do something to show that clearly that this country cares for the plight of our citizens. How can they send our citizens into slavery, thousands of them, and some of them are turned upside down? And one was recounting this morning how they will give them one teaspoon of rice for 5 of them to eat, and that is their meal for the day. Then one showed one small bread that they will slice into pieces. When they give you that bread, that tiny part of that bread is for a 2 days meal. And then somebody is there talking about billions of dollars and then maneuvering. And I was so shocked. And I told some of them that they must show patriotism. This is a time that the industry players must show patriotism. Thank God the company that I share is now being manned by a Nigerian. I asked the managing director, should you leave this office as an MD and you're a Nigerian and this contract remains the way it is, will you be satisfied that your children have no future because of the nature of contract that you entered into? He kept quiet, he could not answer me. I said it is time now for us to know that some of these things, people took advantage of us because of lack of knowledge of technology. That is why I want to support this motion, that we go into a full investigation on this Aegina project in order to save the country. We are not in recession. It is because of poor contracts that the government entered in the past. When you talk about PSC contracts, they recover their money in 3 years, and yet it is for 20 years. So 17 years, they continue to give us 10% or 15% and continue to keep 18% after they have recovered their initial investment. In 3 years, 17 years, they continue to rip the country off. This is not happening in Angola. It's not happening in America. It's only happening in Nigeria. And then we talk about recession. What is recession? Let us get back these billions of dollars from these IOCs so that our children will stop suffering from hunger and dying on the roads and dying in the desert. That is why I support this motion. I don't think it's even something to debate. Let's go into a full-fledged investigation. Invite these people to order. Let this 8th Senate be the first Senate to commence the cleansing of the oil industry, to bring more money to Nigeria, so that Nigeria can get out of this plight of poverty that we are seeing. We talk about corruption. Is corruption the problem? Poor contracts like this have put us where we are, and we are there running around looking for pittance. 5,000. We go and arrest a former governor that he gave a contract without due process for 180 million in Adamawa or somewhere. 180 million, and then people are talking about recovering their 6 billion in 3 years. Then 17 billion, they continue to raise and make profit until they can make over $33 billion. And Nigeria is suffering. I support this motion and I urge all my colleagues to do so. Let's do that.
Thank you, Minority Leader. That was an uncommon delivery. No, I must commend you. You spoke from the heart. I appreciate that. I think we just go straight to prayers. I think unless Senator Ababoka, you want to add something?
Yes, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I just want, this is a very important motion. I totally support it, but at the same time, I want to draw the attention of the committees that are going to work on this, that technically, really there is no contract between Nigeria and this people. But there is a limit to how much you can increase original contracts. By the time it reaches certain percentage, I'm not sure about the percentages now because I'm no more in practice. But once you reach a certain percentage, the contract does not even exist. You will have to renegotiate for a new contract. So let them look at that aspect of the thing. It's very important. They can seek attention of the Attorney General of the Federation and also the Federal Minister of Works for them to get the necessary technical details so that it will guide them. Thank you, sir.
What's a prayer? Prayer 1, carry out public hearing on this widely celebrated project. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Prayer 2, ensure that there are no future changes necessitating further variations of the project cost. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayers 3, ascertain. These prayer 2 and 3, wouldn't that be covered in the investigation? Ascertain whether the cost variation have direct impact, ensure that cost variations have record. I think 2 and 3 will have been covered. So those in favor of prayer 3 and 4 say aye. Those against say nay. Nay, since we've already covered it, so the nay will carry that. Now on prayer 5, Senator Ajola, Aegina is a group of companies. Bonga is another group. Will it be fair for us to say the other should stop because somebody else has not been following the rules? I'm not sure about it. Maybe let me take your comment on that.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to say this, that in light of what we are experiencing with the Aegina project, and we don't know the detailing until the public hearing will be carried out. But the Zaba and the Bonga Southwest is yet to be consummated, and it is in the process. And I can tell you, sir, at least for a known fact, the Bonga Southwest is to produce 150,000 barrels of oil per day. It's $10 billion. The Zaba is to produce the same 150,000 barrels per day for $6.5 billion. And we have not taken off yet. And there is every possibility that this initial costs are just there just for them to get the nod to commence this project. And once they did, they will now start bringing up the variation for subsequent increase and thereon. So it is only right that we deal with this Aegina within the shortest possible time, and then have a basis, a foundation, and reasons why this increment or increment in their cost variation. And that is why we have seek for the understanding of the Senate that we are not asking them to, they can be doing their preliminary work, but this investigation needs to be done to serve as a guide for any future dealing or anything that we will be coming into as a country called Nigeria. That is why we are seeking that the Senate allow these particular 2 items of transaction yet to commence to hold on for now while we quickly carry out the investigation on the Aegina project.
Yes, Senator Jela, I think we must show seriousness. There is nothing in this investigation that you cannot complete before end of this year. I don't think Bonga State or Zabaza can go far in 3 weeks project. Let us show seriousness. Once this committee is giving a go ahead, you must sit down, take time off, extra time, complete this your investigation, so that by the time we come back in January, this will be the first item that we consider the report. We should not just allow the investigation to just hang for months and months, then which we are not showing seriousness. So I think if we agree to that, so I'll put the question there that so the prayer 5 will no longer be, we negate that. Yes. Those in favor of prayer 5 say aye. Those against say nay. Then they have it. Any additional prayer? Yes, and tomorrow.
The mine is not really an addition, but you started by saying carry out public hearing. But the first thing there is direct. And I'm asking if the essence, the basic thing here is variation, which for me is actually the function of the statutory committee, that is the committee on upstream. Local content, there is local content aspect in this motion, but it's not purely a local content problem, because what we are talking about is the variation. And in this parliament, we have a statutory committee saddled with this responsibility. So I think that it should be to direct the committee on upstream and the local content to investigate and carry out public hearing on this widely celebrated project. That is what I think should be done. Carrying out the public is no problem, but there's a committee. We are talking about variation, and there's a committee that...
Distinguished colleagues, the valid point has been raised here. Which committee or which committees or should be mandated with this exercise? Either it's upstream with local content, or is it an ad hoc that compiles both upstream, downstream, local content, or is it what? Let's be guided, please. Yeah, my own leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. Actually, I think in your wisdom, you foresaw this day when you composed the local content committee of the Senate. All the committees you are talking about are all members. Like the chairman of the upstream is a member. The chairman of downstream is a member of local content, and they are aware. So the local content committee will not be sitting alone, but because they are all, most of them are members of the local content committee. So we don't need any other committee, but as he's talking about the variation, it's only a small part of it. We need to protect the interests of Nigerians, and that is what the local content law is all about. In terms of all these variations they are talking about, how much have they complied with the law? Those are the things we are talking about. It's really not something that we are not investigating their variation per se, because of course...
You're looking at that as well. Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues. From my limited understanding of parliamentary assignments, issues of this nature are better handled by a select committee, which we refer to as ad hoc committee. The reason being that the local content committee is the one that has brought this motion. In the motion, it has already made certain allegations that are almost near conclusive. If you refer this matter back to them, in the wisdom or lack of it of those who may appear, they may allege bias or whatever. So, but an ad hoc committee is necessary, and that committee should consist of representation from the judiciary and legal matters, the local content, and I don't intend to be part of it, but just to be guided, because you are talking about an agreement. You are talking about an agreement that was entered into, the consequence of which put us into this place. So you must be properly guided so that a report that is befitting of this Senate can come before the Senate.
Distinguished colleagues, I think let us make progress. I think probably the best way forward is that we set up a local, set up an ad hoc committee that is composed of members that reflect those that have responsibility in this area. So before the end of the day, I will announce an ad hoc committee for this committee. Distinguished colleagues, let me thank Senator Adiola for this very, very important motion, and which has raised two issues here. The issue of variation. I find it difficult to understand in a currency where inflation is not, you now talk about less than 10 years, you go from 6 billion to 16 billion. What was the cause of this level of variation? When would the federal government ever get revenue on this kind of field? And the point you raise is that if we allow it to go away in Aegina, then other deep offshore will fall under the same kind of model, and government will never save money. Secondly is to ensure that there's compliance with the local content law. These are the big issues. The committee that we set up is you have the responsibility to turn in your report as quick as possible. We do not want this report to just linger on and the committee just stays there and becomes a standing committee by action. So please ensure that this report would come in maximum 3 weeks, so that by the time we resume, we will consider this report and be able to address the other projects that are going on. And those who are members of this committee, please ensure the utmost integrity and that a decent and diligent work is done, because this goes round to the root of what we are complaining about, where
Distinguished Senator Abdullah, yes, to present the report, sir.
Senator Abdullah.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm taking you through this report on behalf of the joint chairman of this committee in the persons of Senator John Owen Eno, Chairman, Committee on Finance, Senator Rabi Musa Konkoso, Chairman, Committee on National Planning and Budget, and distinguished Senator Juma Boje, Chairman of the Committee of Appropriations. Mr. President, Senate at its sitting on Tuesday, 7th November 2017, considered the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief on the 2018-2020 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, and referred the same to the Committee on Appropriations, Finance, and National Planning. Pursuant to Section 11, Subsection 3 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007, the federal government is enjoined, I quote, to prepare the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, which entails a 3-year planning to define the federal government's economic, social, developmental objectives and priorities. The membership of the Committee of Finance is presented on page 3 to 4. Committee of Appropriations is presented on page 4, and Committee on National Planning is on page 5. The methodology involved identified all the stakeholders whose names are listed on page 6, and in determination to arrive at a realistic MTEF and FSC for the next 3 years, the committee considered the actual performance of the 2017 budget and the previous MTEF. In addition, the following documents were also consulted. These documents are listed 1 to 3 on page 6. The 2017 budget had an aggregate expenditure of 3.4441 trillion. It was signed into law on 12 June 2017. Releases in the order of 2.683 trillion. Therefore, on the whole, we can see that the performance of the 2017 budget is on the lower side. The 2018-2020 medium expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper
is focused on broadening the revenue receipts by identifying and plugging revenue leakages, improving efficiency and quality of capital spending, and greater emphasis has been placed on critical infrastructures, rationalization of recurrent expenditure, and gradual fiscal consolidation to maintain the fiscal deficit below 3% of GDP as prescribed in Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. The key drivers of the fiscal strategy are as follows. The medium-term fiscal policy objectives: accelerating growth, intensifying economic diversification, and promoting inclusiveness, and achieving macroeconomic consistency. Others are enhancing oil revenue and accelerating non-oil revenue generation, addressing recurrent capital spending imbalance, improving efficiency and quality of public spending, and maintaining deficit or debt level within sustainable limits. The summary of the 2018 medium-term expenditure framework, Mr. President, and the fiscal strategy paper projections are there under 5.2, paragraph 5.2 of this presentation. They indicate an estimate of daily crude oil production at 2.3 million barrels per day, benchmark oil price of $45.0 dollars per barrel, exchange rate of 305 per US dollar, and so on. Now, on paragraph 6.0, we come to the Joint Committee recommendation on the key assumptions. In oil production, the Joint Committee recommends that we sustain it or increase it from last year's 2.2 to 2.3 million barrels per day, as proposed by the executive in 2018. Oil benchmark price, the recommendation of the Joint Committee is $46.5 per barrel, which is an addition of $1.5 per barrel from the submission of the executive. On the exchange rate, the 305 naira per dollar is recommended as presented by the executive arm of government, and the non-oil revenue projection, the recommendation is the adoption of 5.279 trillion for the non-oil revenue in 2018. Debt management, our recommendation of the Joint Committee is the adoption of 1.699 trillion new net borrowing for 2018 as proposed by the executive, but we insist that they should be on project-type basis. In borrowing more, government must remain focused and ensure that it is used to fund critical projects that will increase productivity and also contribute to financing such debt. On human capital development, the recommendation of the committee is that the relevant committees of the National Assembly should closely and constantly oversight the MDAs on the implementation of these programs to ensure effective, widespread and representative targeting of beneficiaries. On revenue generation, the recommendation of the Joint Committee is that the National Assembly should amend the relevant sections of the Fiscal Responsibility Act and other laws. On the gross domestic product, the recommendation of the Joint Committee is the adoption of 3.5% growth rate, especially with the latest figures indicating a doubling of growth rate to 1.4% in the third quarter of 2017. In conclusion, the Joint Committee sincerely expresses its appreciation to the Senate leadership and entire members of this distinguished Senate for the opportunity to serve. Thank you and God bless you all.
Any comments? We'll go to the prayer. Distinguished, we take the prayer said. Prayer 1. The Joint Committee recommends the adoption of 2.3 million barrels per day as proposed by the Executive for 2018 budget. Those in favor of adoption of 2.3 million barrels per day say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Joint Committee recommends the adoption of $46.50 per barrel as benchmark price for 2018. Yes, Senator. Yes, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, why I commend the work of the committee, I think it will be more expedient for this Senate to dance at the middle of the interest of Nigeria and the most responsible approach, of course, to assessment of the situation. I do not want to believe that we can find justification in taking this recommendation. I am therefore of the opinion that we add 5 so that it becomes reasonably in between win-win situation, and then we can take a benchmark of 47. To me, this may be the most reasonable approach to this report. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Samayo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, President, Samayo, Representative Imo East. I want to second the amendment of the recommendation that this benchmark should increase to $47 per barrel.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that prayer to recommendation 2 be amended to read that the benchmark recommends the adoption of $47 per barrel as benchmark price for 2018 budget. Those in favor of this amendment say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer recommendation 3. Joint Committee recommends the adoption of 305 naira to $1 as proposed for 2018 budget. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer recommendation 4. The Joint Committee recommends the adoption of the projected 5.279 trillion for non-oil revenue in 2018. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 5. Joint Committee recommends the adoption of 1.699 trillion for new borrowing for 2018. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayers, recommendation 6. Relevant committees of National Assembly should closely and constantly oversight the MDAs on the implementation of these programs to ensure effective, widespread, and representative targeting of beneficiaries. Those in favor of recommendation 6 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Recommendation 7 that the National Assembly to amend the relevant sections of the Fiscal Responsibility Act and other laws. Senator Abdullahi, what relevant sections are you referring to here?
Mr. President, and we are thinking that there is a need for the government to develop an interface and financial mechanisms for budget of infrastructure projects. Basically what it says is that we should try to look into the various legislations in the Fiscal Responsibility Act and other laws, because the major Achilles heel of the entire budget, particularly expenditure for the revenue side. So we thought that if we look into the various laws, how can we be able, to raise the budget GDP ratio, so that we can be able to increase the amount of resources that can be generated, from the to boost the size of the economy and also the size of the amount that is available for investment into both capital, particularly the capital side of the budget.
All right, I think your point is noted, but really it should not come under a vague general resolution. It is our responsibility at all times to make necessary amendment to laws, and I think that we can do that without coming under a specific resolution of this. The Committee on Finance can look into that and come up with an amendment at any given time. So I don't think it would be necessary for that to come under this committee. Yes, Leader, you've been raising your hand.
If I may offer some guidance to cure the desire of this committee to forward this recommendation to the Senate. We all know that our problem has always been that when we painstakingly look at the analysis of our medium-term expenditure and then the budget, and then we send a benchmark, what normally happens is that If something comes in excess, the executive will, with due respect, recklessly deal with the amount without having to come back to the National Assembly, which itself is unconstitutional. So in order for the Senate to stamp its feet and ensure financial prudence and ensure the execution of the intendment that necessitated the arrival for the benchmark, in the Appropriation Act itself, sir, we can insert a clause that will make it illegal and unlawful for the executive to tamper with anything in excess of what we have said as benchmark without having to come back to the National Assembly. I think this is the needed.
Okay, I think I have to come under a new recommendation. So let's just finish the last and then you can come under a new recommendation. So the recommendation 7, we say we stand that down, or it's not, so I'll put the question anyway. The National Assembly shall amend the relevant sections of this Fiscal Responsibility Act and other laws. I think we're saying that doesn't need to come under a specific recommendation. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. Nays have it. Recommendation 8. The Joint Committee recommends the adoption of 3.5% growth rate. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. Nays have it. Okay, leader, if you can propose your recommendation so we get someone to second it and then we can put the question.
Yes, sir. The proposal is having enumerated what the problem has always been in the past. I move that we insert in the 2018 Appropriation Act a specific clause that will make it illegal for the executive to deal with any amount in excess of the benchmark set without having to come back to the National Assembly.
Can you, so the committee recommends, or we recommend, we insert in the 2018 Appropriation Act a clause which recommend we insert in the 2018 Appropriation Act a clause which makes it mandatory for the executive to revert to National Assembly in all expenditures, for any expenditure in excess of the benchmark, that is price and production. Yes, second, Sonny, good.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Sonny Ubod. I rise to second the recommendation ably moved by the Deputy Leader of the Senate that the executive must report back to the National Assembly any excess arising from the benchmark, any excess revenue arising from the benchmark should be brought back to appropriation by the National Assembly. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of this amendment say aye. Those against say nay. There is any other additional prayer? If not, let me thank the Committee on Finance and Appropriation for that report. We do hope that those relevant revenue generating agencies, particularly in the area of independent revenue, will ensure that they meet their targets that they have set for 2018, and also in the area of those in the NNPC and Ministry of Petroleum and in the oil and gas sector, to also ensure that the benchmark production that we have set of 2.8 million barrels should be met, and they should work. They keep on telling us that they can do it. We have given them another opportunity for them to meet it this year to ensure that this is done, and we continue to work hard to ensure that we achieve this. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is second reading of the Executive Bill on the National Center for Disease Control and Prevention Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Thursday, the 30th day of November 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator. Mr. President, with your permission, I move that the bill be read a second time.
Yes, leader, carry on with lead debate. The lead debate on.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, this is the lead debate on the National Center for Disease Control and Prevention Bill 2017. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which was read for the first time on Thursday, the 30th day of November 2017. The National Center for Disease Control was established in the year 2011 in response to the challenges of public health emergencies and to enhance Nigeria's preparedness and response to epidemics through prevention, detection, and control of communicable and non-communicable diseases. Its core mandate is to detect, investigate, prevent, and control diseases of national and international public health importance. The mission for the NCDC is to protect the health of Nigerians through evidence-based prevention, integrated disease surveillance, and response activities using a One Health approach guided by research and led by a skilled workforce. The core function of the NCDC include prevent, detect, and control diseases of public health importance, coordinate surveillance systems to collect, analyze, and interpret data on diseases of public health importance, support states in responding to small outbreaks and lead the response to large disease outbreaks, develop and maintain a network of reference and specialized laboratories, lead Nigeria's engagement with the international community on diseases of public health relevant, conduct, collect, synthesize, and disseminate public health research to inform policy. There is the need for the strong public health system in Nigeria, and the Center for Disease Control administratively to put in place in year 2001 will further be strengthened to perform its role with the enactment of this legislation, giving it a legal status and with definition of its powers. It is made up of 7 parts, 23 sections, and supplementary provisions relating to the board. My distinguished colleagues, Part 1 on the establishment deals with the establishment clause, the governing board of the center, tenure of office for members of the board, and functions of the board. Part 2 deals with the functions and powers of the center. Part 3 deals with the structure of the center. Part 4 deals with the staff of the center. 5 is dealing with financial provision and fund administration. Part 6 provides for the constitution of the Advisory Council on NCDC, while Part 7 deals with the miscellaneous issues including legal proceedings, interpretation clause, and short title. A supplementary provision on the proceedings of the board and committees is also provided with an explanatory memorandum. The bill, which will give legal backing and teach the activities of the National Center for Control Disease, is humbly presented for passage into law. The center played a foremost role in the fight against the outbreak of Ebola virus and the disease, and the recent monkeypox outbreak had, in collaboration with World Health Organization, provided technical support, expert advice to the states affected. It has continued to play key roles in the containment of many communicable diseases in our country, including cholera, Lassa fever. The center will continue to be key in public health issues and will be our link to other similar bodies with the World Health Organization in global public health regulation and activities. The NCDC has been operating administratively for several years with the required personnel in place. It has its operational office in Abuja and has received a fair share of our annual budget as appropriated by the National Assembly for several years. There will not be any new financial requirement arising from the operation of this bill. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, the NCDC has already put in place a functional, efficient, and effective administrative duties and alive to its responsibilities. This bill is therefore necessary to give the center a regulatory and legal framework to function and network in and across our borders as a legal entity, empowered by our laws to provide health, security, and protect us from health threats. I therefore urge my colleagues to support this bill for second reading. In replicanto, all that we are trying to say is that we are all aware that from the various parts of this country, we sometimes face challenges of outbreak of certain diseases that needs prompt response. The body has already been in existence. What is important is for this Senate to give it a legal backing that will put it in a legal position to interface with World Health Organization and other international organizations for the purpose of carrying the responsibility based on it. With my colleagues, it will be my pleasure if I have the support of my entire colleagues, more especially distinguished Senator Mao Ahamua, who is very, very vast in this area of our health sector. Thank you very much, sir.
Senator Mao.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, it is with great pleasure, Mr. President, I stand to second this all-important bill, which seeks nothing but to legalize and formalize the existence of Nigerian Center for Disease Control, which is modeled in line with the Center for Disease Control, Atlanta. We are aware, like it's been said, the functions and duties and responsibilities of NCDC. They made Nigeria proud in curtailing and checkmating the outbreak of Ebola. The recent monkeypox issue is still very fresh, and other roles. They are there to prevent and detect and control the diseases of public health nature. Mr. President, I want to seek the support of my colleagues that really this bill does not require debate, but we should let it go through second reading. I second this motion, Mr. President. Thank you. This bill.
I don't think anybody is against it, so let me put the questions. Those in favor that this bill will be read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the National Center for Disease Control and Prevention and for matters connected therewith, 2017, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the National Center for Disease Control and Prevention and for matters connected therewith, 2017, second reading taken. This bill is referred to the Committee on Health and report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the fourth order of the day is the second reading of the NNPC Act, Cap number 123, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Amendment Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, the 22nd day of November 2017.
Order, please. Order, please.
Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ahmadu Abubakar, represented by distinguished Senator Gershom Bashi, to move this motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Senator Gershom Bashi. So that last one is referred to primary health. Report back in 4 weeks. Yes, Senator Gershom Bashi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gershom Bashi, Cross River South Senatorial District. This is the lead debate on a bill to amend the Nigerian Petroleum Corporation Act, Cap 123, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and for matters connected therewith. It's sponsored by a number of senators, 6 of us in 4. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on the general principles of the Nigerian National Petroleum Act, Cap 123, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, Amendment Bill 2017. Objectives of the bill. In a nutshell, this bill is intended to amend sections 3, 6, 7, and 19 of the Principal Act to achieve the following objectives. 1. To make the appointment of the Group Managing Director of the NNPC subject to the confirmation of the Senate. 2. To increase the contract approval limit of the GMD of the NNPC from 5 million naira to 500 million naira, or its USD equivalent, considering the changing value of the naira. And 3. make it mandatory for the NNPC to submit annual reports and audited accounts of its operations to the Senate no later than 3 months before the end of each financial year. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the NNPC has over the years been linked to a number of financial leakages and unresolved allegations of fraudulent diversion of funds which should have been applied to development projects. This unfortunate development underscores the urgent need for the National Assembly to intensify its oversight and supervision of the finances of the corporation in line with Section 88 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. This bill therefore satisfies the twin objective of improving the extant legal framework to engender accountability and allows for closer monitoring of the activities of the corporation. It is equally in line with the principles of checks and balances, or with the principle of checks and balances, which is recognized under the Constitution to make the appointment of the GMD receive the confirmation of the Senate. It is therefore appropriate that the Principal Act be amended to make it mandatory for the appointment of the GMD to be made by the President, subject to confirmation by the Senate. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, from the foregoing, therefore, the proposed amendment reinforces the oversight powers of the National Assembly under Section 88 and 89 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. This, in essence, will afford the National Assembly the opportunity to prevent financial recklessness by the corporation, prevent financial recklessness by the corporation, which has become a nagging challenge for the corporation. Distinguished colleagues, the intent of the bill is quite simple, and I will therefore appeal to you to give your overwhelming support for the second reading of this bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this bill has no financial implications, no compendium is attached as required by Order 77.3 of the Senate Standing Orders 2015 as amended. Thank you very much, and I pray for your support to this amendment.
Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, sir. Very distinguished colleagues. The NNPC is a very important agency of government, and whatever concerns them will be of concern to all of us. So, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I have some concerns, but I think that we need to do more consultations regarding this bill. Under the Procurement Act, there are a number of benchmarks for approving authorities, and we need to be sure that this is also in conformity with the Procurement Act in terms of the amount the GMD can approve. Here it's saying 500 million. So I think it is important that we cross-check the Procurement Act and be sure that this is also in conformity with provisions of the Procurement Act and of the Procurement Act. And also we are dealing with the PIB, so we need to align this as well with the provisions of the PIB. So my kind of suggestion is that as important as this bill is, let us step it down and do more consultation so that we're able to arrive at something that is acceptable to every person.
Senator Gobri.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Distinguished colleagues. My name is Distinguished Senator Ibrahim Gobri from Sokoto East. I actually second what the PSP said, because for sure we cannot sit down here and then set a limit, procurement limit. Because number one, this is subject to the approval of the board, which is also subject to the approval of the FEC, Federal Executive Council. So I don't think there is any necessity of anything in this bill. For me, it should be stepped down.
Senator Mayafa.
Thank you, Mr. President, my well-respected colleagues. Senator Kabiru Garba representing Zamfara Central, Mr. President, let me just try to step in for the mover of this motion and as a co-sponsor. Let me begin by saying that, yes, we need to look at the bill, even though we are considering PIB, and PIB is definitely going to take care of everything in the oil industry. But with utmost respect, I want to disagree with my leader, the Deputy Senate President. I don't think the bill needs to be stepped down at this point in time. And the reason is very simple. We are not passing the bill now in third reading. So it is going to public hearing, it is going to all the consultations the DSP demanded.
You're taking a risk.
Yes. Yes. No, excuse me. Yes, Mr. President. So at the various legislative processes that the bill is going to cross ahead of the second reading, before it gets to the third reading, no, this is the second reading now. So it is going to pass through the various legislative processes before it is now approved in the third reading. Then, Mr. President, the second issue raised by my colleagues, much as it looks real and germane, is not really anything of any importance. Yes, I'm saying this because this 500 million naira we are talking about is not even up to $2 million. And the fact of
distinguished senator, my sorry to inject. I think, and the issue why this bill has come up is because of the experience we had at the end of when we were doing the budget of enterprises, and we found that NNPC did not submit their budget. No, because you are focusing on what I think is not even an issue that you carry. The issue of the issue. I'm trying to ensure that you don't go into turbulence and you don't. So let me guide you. You are seeing thunderstorms and you are going towards thunderstorms. This issue of the value of the naira is not the issue. I think it's the principle of the fact that we had a problem. All parastatals submitted their budget for 2017 and NNPC did not, because it is not covered in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And I think that is the reason why. So you are go into clear weather. Go to clear weather, leave bad weather.
Well guided, Mr. President. These are the words of wisdom. Number three, Mr. President, is the third item. I think there is a little problem with the third item, make it mandatory for NNPC to submit annual reports and audited account. It is actually supposed to be, that is the area Mr. President is talking about, and that is the thrust of this bill. Make it mandatory for NNPC to submit its budget, its annual budget, to the National Assembly, because as it is now, it is they are only responsible to their board, and the Parliament is left out of the whole picture of expenditure of NNPC. So these are the few comments I wanted to.
Anybody else have comments? Yes, Deputy Leader.
Sir, I feel that on issues of this nature, there has been a very, very bold effort by this bill to enhance our institution and to safeguard our institutions and to build our institutions. Yes, something somewhere has come in that appears or sounds absurd in nature, but my opinion is that we can save this bill, we still can save this bill, sir, and put it to the committee, because the first part of it is very, very beautiful. Like the Deputy Senate Leader has said, NNPC today remains the lifeware of this nation, pending what becomes of our diversification effort. And a lot of issues have arisen from that place. So if there is an attempt to safeguard that institution by making the appointment of the GMD subject to the confirmation of the Senate, I think it's a very, very important step to take. there may be further positions again that may be taken at the committee level. So I urge my colleagues to allow this bill to second reading. Let it go to the committee so that it can be enriched, so that the beautiful effort of the committee to safeguard the institution of the NNPC is not thrown away. Don't throw away the baby with the bath. Why not? That's how I look at it. So,
distinguished colleagues, yes, and Samaya, you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Samaya, I represent Imo East. First of all, Mr. President, there's a motion on grant which was, moved by the Deputy Senate President, seconded by Senator Gobe, and this is not the first time we have stepped down a bill for further consultation. I don't think this one will be an exception. Since this motion has already been seconded, I think what you need to do is to, put it to vote so that we can be able to.
Distinguished colleagues, I think the principle of this is a bill. It's not the issue of us stepping down is if the mover of the bill believes that he needs to go and do some more legislative work. He believes that he can put the question and write the question. So, Senator Marfa, I guess you have done your homework. So, I'll put the question then. Distinguished colleagues, I think this issue is too important. The most important issue as I find is the item of the budget of the NNPC, and I think that is so important and is overriding all other issues. All other issues are secondary. Confirmation of GMD, budget approval, limit of J are secondary. Most important issues. We cannot continue to sit here and an organization NNPC does not present its budget here. And I think that is enough for this bill, in my own view, to go for second reading. And when it gets there, the effort is done. Senator Samayon, please note that. Those in favor that this bill is brought, Secretary, say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. President, Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation NNPC Act Cap N123 LFA 2004 and for other connected matters therewith 2017 second reading.
A bill for an act to amend the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation NNPC Act Cap N123 LFA 2004 and for other connected matters there with 2017 second reading taken. This bill is referred to the Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream, Petroleum Resources Upstream and Gas. Report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the fifth order of the day is the resumption of the adjourned debate on the 2018 Appropriation Bill, fourth allotted day. The distinguished senators will recall that the Senate commenced debate on the 2018 Appropriation Bill on Tuesday, the 28th November 2017, and so far, 45 senators have contributed. Further debates was deferred until the next legislative day, which is today. Mr. President, with your permission, I move that the Senate will resume the debate on the 2018 Appropriation Bill 2018. And Minority Leader, why are you looking at me?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I looked at the mover and I second the motion.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. Is there anybody left? Because really the reason why we stood down this was because we had not completed the MTEF. So I will only take maybe just one contribution on it, and then I think we have all. Anybody else want to contribute on the budget? Yes, DSP.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I didn't have opportunity to contribute because I presided most of the time when it was not considered. I'm just going to make a very quick point, which is the issue of the management of our excess crude. The management of our excess crude fund, that the money realized beyond the benchmark, projected benchmark for a particular year, has been at best unconstitutional. Look at section 162 of our constitution. It is clear
that the Federation shall maintain a special account to be called the Federation account, into which shall be paid all revenue collected by the government of the Federation, and so on and so forth. Now, instead of making this an article of faith, what I've seen in the past is that the federal government set up an account, I believe by the central bank, which they call the excess crude account, in which instead of paying money in accordance with Section 62 to the Federation account, they pay some of this money into the excess crude account. Now, this has led to a number of abuses, because what happens is that the government arbitrarily withdraw money from here and share amongst the three tiers of government, contrary to provisions of this constitution. And if you look at Section 162, 3 and 4, it is clear what the powers of National Assembly in regard to this money. It says any amount standing to the credit of the Federation account shall be distributed among the federal and state government and the local government council in each state on such terms and such manners as may be prescribed by the National Assembly. It goes on to sub 4 to say any amount standing to the credit of the states in the Federation account shall be distributed among the states on such terms and in such manners as may be prescribed by the National Assembly. So this excess crude account, by all intent and purpose, is aimed at undermining the National Assembly and the powers conferred on us by this constitution. Therefore, I suggest, sir, that before we pass this budget, we must have provision in the Appropriation Act for this year that any amount realized beyond the benchmark for 3 years must be brought to the National Assembly for the National Assembly to decide in accordance with Section 162 and 4. Unless we do that, we continue to abuse the process of oil revenue, and it's not been accounted for. If we are fighting corruption, we need to fight it totally. And every arm of government must be involved, including the National Assembly. So this should be our contribution to the abuse of the revenue fund, and then to prevent further abuse of the money realized from the oil revenue of the Federation. Thank you.
Yes, leader.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues. I have looked through the contents of the 2018 budget. But, sir, it's important that we raise some concerns. Concerns that are genuine and concerns that affect almost all of us. Mr. President, I will give you an example. When we came here in 2016, 15 years, we were to consider the 2016 budget. And we sat down here as a Senate out of our desire to continue to enhance the corporate existence of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We look at the budget of the executive, and all of us here, in the exercise of our responsibilities, felt that development should be even, and therefore some adjustments were made in certain capital projects to reflect geopolitical zones. Mr. President, you will remember that, for example, the Northwest, in the magnanimity of the Senate, was allotted some monies for the purpose of doing some very key important projects that relates to road from Kontagora to Manchi and up to Akitakwas, and of course from Mina Junction, all scaling up to Tambuwal and Sokoto. We had the unfortunate situation where some very irresponsible citizens of this country decided that the only way they could work against those allegations is to accuse the Senate of padding the budget. And then invariably, the president couldn't sign the budget and those monies were released. The irony of it is that those who are in the forefront of accusing us of even distribution of these resources, of alleging that the budget has been padded, again are now crying to say that while we represent them here, we sat down and allowed some monies to be taken to certain part of the country without their own part of the country. So I don't know really where we stand. So the main issue that I'm trying to bring is that in the implementation of this budget, we must have some guidelines from the executive that will give us an idea of what informs priority project. And I will say this, Mr. President, because we have the misfortune of having a budget duly signed by Mr. President, which is a law. And then we have some people who, in their wisdom or lack of it, will implement this budget in such a manner as not to reflect even distribution of resources into the political those of this country. And what happens later is we have people, again, who will continue to say that the monies inserted in these projects were eaten or taken away by members of the parliament, forgetting that we play no role whatsoever in the implementation of the budget. So I think it is important that after passing this budget, I recommend that either the leadership or the leadership of the committees must call a 2-day stakeholders forum with these ministers to give us guidelines on the implementation of the budget. Otherwise, Mr. President, what we continue to see is that the budget will be passed by the National Assembly, it will be signed by Mr. President, and then somebody somewhere acting as minister, forgetting that he is equally performing the function of the president, because it's the constitution that says the president may perform his function either by himself or through ministers appointed by him. So if you are a minister and you are implementing the budget of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you must have recourse to the oath of office you have taken to do justice to all manner of people. You cannot, in your wisdom or lack of it, decide that because you are from one section of the country, take away every capital project of the budget based on the allocation and continue to do it there. It does not spell good for the country. And I think that this is where this National Assembly must find a way to resolve this issue. It's very, very important, Mr. President. As it stands today, every single senator here is being accused of not doing one project or the other in his constituency, not knowing that his own function is just to put it in the budget, and the budget being a law, the minister is under obligation to execute that. But we don't have that kind of situation. If the check and balances are going to continue, we must have some framework that will enable us to explain to our people why certain things can be done and why certain things cannot be done. And I hope that with these little remarks of mine, I have at least explained the concerns of my colleagues, and more particularly the National Assembly, in respect of the way we implement budget in this country. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. Samanyangu is my name. I represent Imo East. Mr. President, I didn't have opportunity to debate last time because I was in the public hearing of the Southeast Debate Commission. Mr. President, I'm persuaded by the submission of the Deputy Senate President. If you recall, that was one of the motion that was brought here by Senator Rozoko about the SS code, which way I believe that this budget will cure that mischief. I think it's important that that issue of SS code should be looked into, because I don't see a reason why the SS code will be spent without the approval of the National Assembly. Mr. President woke up one morning and called the governors and give them money for bailouts. At the end of the day, the bailout goes into the pocket of these governors without using it for the payment of salaries and pensions for these pensioners. I think that this issue, having been addressed by the President, I think it's very, very important. Again, Mr. President, I think I've looked at the budget, even though it has a slight declaration of the Southeast and South-South. Just 2 days ago, I was watching NUPEC. NUPEC is about going on strike because they cannot carry crude anymore from the south to the north because of bad roads, because the trucks cannot. So I think it is important that this budget, especially those projects that have to do with the Southeast and South-South, that where these people carry these products down to the north, must be addressed well and let it not be a lip service, kind of addressing. So it is important that we must look into that end, because I get worried. Every year we come here and we say it's the annual ritual of the budget defense and our budget implementation, and yet nothing comes out of it. Just, Mr. President, last year, December 20th, went and presented the budget, 2017 budget, last year. And today we are still talking about the implementation of that budget, almost going a year. And not even 10% of the intervention projects from my constituency or from Southeast is being implemented. So I get worried how we continue to do this every year.
Now there's a group called Budget Monitoring Group or whatever. Every year you see them on television looking at project. They will bring one state. They will bring one state constituency. They will bring out the picture of that senator and said his constituency he had a project of 200 or 340 400 billion or million. But he is cited as a place. But if you go there, nothing is done. They never knew that this money was never released. It was never implemented, and yet we carried all the baggage of all sorts of names, as legislators. So I think, Mr. President, we must look at this issue squarely. But you will see a minister in his own constituency, all the projects is being implemented. Why? So I think this area must be properly addressed. If actually this project, because we have seen this economy, we are just managing this economy. This economy is already a fair economy, so we are just trying to patch it. So it is important that those who are going to implement this budget should look critically those areas that require the image of this legislature to be guaranteed, not to be messed up by people. Because today, every day, there's a document every week on every state constituency on this issue, and I feel very bad. People keep writing petitions against senators that they have eaten the money meant for the constituency project. People don't know if that these constituency projects are not money, it's not cash. It doesn't come to any senator. But yet, because of the relentless impression created by the executive, it looks as if this money is given to members of the National Assembly and they eat it or use it for their own personal use. So I think these areas, Mr. President, in this budget, if actually we have a budget, should be taken care of. Thank you, Mr. President, because I don't think I have anything to debate on this budget because it's going to be a sure thing. Thank you.
I want to thank and Senator Samuel, you contributed on the budget, haven't you? Oh, okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Sam, I represent Ebonyi non-senatorial district. Mr. President, in line with what my colleagues, others have said, I want to comment on the implementation of this budget, with particular reference to 2016, because 2017, as far as I'm concerned, does not exist. It never worked. In 2016, Mr. President, specifically with regard to my constituency, some jobs that were awarded and completed by the contractors were not paid. And on inquiry, I went to the specific ministries where the jobs were cited. And the information I got was that from the budget office, when they are releasing money to the ministry, they are tagging the fund to specific projects. So that a contractor that has finished his own job, unless he has seen them at the budget office, he will not be paid. I think that is very, very unusual. And that is corruption. If job is done, money allocated to the ministry should be used to be paid to the contractor that have done their jobs, and not for the job that is completed to wait. And the money is lying for specific ministries, for jobs, to be determined by the budget office now. They now determine who to be paid and not who to be paid. As against the ministry that verifies and satisfies and issues certificates for job completed. I think this is an irony and a misplacement of facts and a very high level of corruption. I think, Mr. President, that we as the Senate should ensure that transparency is maintained to the level where if you finish a job and certified, you will pay the money. And not for budget office, the clerks there, to now determine who will be paid or who will not be paid. I just arrest my case. I think we should look into it, Mr. President.
That's a very good observation. Let me thank all those who have contributed to the general debate and principles of this bill. At this point, I would now like to put a question. Those in favor that this bill be now read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 8,612,250,000 236,953,214 naira only, of which 458,654,074 naira only is for statutory transfer. 2,335,365,699 naira only is for the debt service. 3,497,820,219 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 2,427,665,113,222 naira only is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2018, second reading.
A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 8,612,236,953,214 naira only, of which 456,458,654,074 naira only is for statutory transfers. 2,233,835,365,699 naira only for debt service. 3,494,277,820,219 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 2,427,665,113,222 naira is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2018, second reading. This bill is referred to the Committee on Appropriation and to report back by Tuesday, 19th December 2017. Distinguished colleagues, let me just make some comments on this. Thank God for the contribution. We know that the timetable is very, very tight, as we will be suspending plenary for us to be able to start the defense of this budget. With committee chairmen and members should please ensure that you keep to the timetable. And let me at this one make a general warning to all heads of MDAs to ensure that they respect strictly the letter of invitation and timetable. This is not time for excuses for ministers or heads of parastatals to be traveling and not be able to attend defense. We don't have the time. It's a very short timetable that we have, and I expect all the MDAs to respect the invitation to be there on time so that the committees can wrap up and be able to present their report by the time we come back on Tuesday the 19th. And also for the appropriation committee to take note of what the comments of the DSP and which we have talked about, particularly on the issue of ensuring that when we come back for the passage of the budget, we do ensure that the clause is relevant to the provisions of and makes it mandatory for the executive to come to us for any expenditure in light of funds in excess of the budget of the benchmark of gap price and production. Distinguished colleagues, let me thank you all that have contributed on the debate of the 2018 budget. And I know that we have a lot of work ahead of us over the next few weeks. It is also our intention that there would be a public hearing. I think the announcement will be made during the week. I think from my discussion from the chairman of appropriation, they're looking at Monday the 18th but I'm sure between now and then an announcement will be made. We expect attendance by all at this public hearing. Leader of the Senate will.
Having concluded today's proceedings with the active cooperation of the opposition, I move that we suspend plenary till the 18th day, Tuesday the 18th day, 19th day, of December 2017 at 10 a.m. from. I so move.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion as moved by the Senate leader that having concluded today's deliberations, we should suspend plenary until the 19th day of December, Tuesday, to enable all committees, the MDAs, and other ministers to come before the various committees of the Senate to defend the 2018 appropriation bill that we are considering. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, before I put the question, I have about 4 announcements. Northern Senators Forum, Your Excellency, Northern Senators Forum retreat. This is to inform distinguished members of the Northern Senators Forum that there shall be a retreat schedule as follows: Monday the 11th to Wednesday the 13th December 2017. Arrival day is Monday 11th of December 2017. Opening ceremony is Tuesday 12th December 2017. Venue Katsina, Katsina State. Distinguished members are urged to attend. Signed, Senator Abdullahi Adamu Sedeki Yaki Kafi, Chairman. Second announcement is there's a meeting. There will be a meeting of the PDP caucus today, Tuesday, immediately after sitting at hearing room 1. All PDP senators should kindly attend. Signed by Minority Leader. Ad hoc committee for the investigation of the Aegina oil field has the following as members: Senator Adiola, Senator Akpabio, Senator Alasha Adura, Senator Geshem Basi, Senator Kabiru Marafa, Senator Philip Aduda, Senator Albert Akpan, Senator Amadu Abubakar, Senator David Umoru, Senator Utazi, Senator Stella Odua, Chairman Senator Adiola. Announcement: Friends of Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara at 50, we write to inform you that our friend and brother, His Excellency Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara, Speaker of the House of Representatives, will be 50 years old on December 26, 2017. In order to celebrate him, identify with him and his ideals, we, the Friends of Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara, have decided to organize a charity football competition in his honor. You are therefore invited to attend the charity football competition event. The event is scheduled to take place on Sunday, December 17th, 2017 at venue Mediterranean Recreational Center, 1141 Kwame Nkrumah Crescent, Asokoro, Abuja. Time 3 p.m. prompt. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we hereby adjourn and suspend plenary till Tuesday, 19 December 2017, 10 a.m. prompt, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is accordingly adjourned till Tuesday, 19 December 2017, 10 a.m. prompt.